Okay, first I will have two technical questions. Does everyone hear me, or do I need to use the mic? I'd rather not, but if it's okay, then I'll speak without the mic. And the second technical question is, does everyone have a handout? Because they might be useful. If not, I have some more here at my disposal. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for having me here and for giving me the opportunity to speak to such a distinguished audience. And now to punishment. The ancient Athenians were apparently quite fond of punishing, or at least of talking about it. The Greek forensic discourse presents us with a vast and apparently inexhaustible amount of terms which could be used to signify punishment. Inexhaustible because the Greek orators frequently expressed the idea of punishment figuratively. For example, by means of metonymy, say the concrete or the abstract. There is killing instead of punishing with death. There is literally throwing away ekbalei instead of punishing with exile. There is disenfranchising instead of punishing with disenfranchisement. There is becoming a debtor instead of being punished with a fine, and so on. The proper words, however, the verba propria, denoting punishment, are also numerous. Kolazein, dicen lambanein, and didonai, and epitenion are perhaps the most general terms. They are explained in handout number 1, 2, 3. Most general terms denoting perhaps all or most kinds of punishment, of penalties, from monetary through disenfranchisement to capital punishment. The term zemia, this is handout number 4, is curiously circumscribed to the two extremes. That is, on the one hand, monetary penalties, on the other, capital punishment, though usually with the added qualifier thanatos, for instance, thanatos estine, zemia. Timoria and its related verb, timorein or timoreistai, more frequently than not, this is handout number 5, by the way, more frequently than not refers to penalties affecting the person, and as such is sometimes seen to be explicitly opposed to monetary penalties. This is passage number 5, actually. The problem, however, is not the sheer number of these terms, but the fact that they come from different semantic spheres, and these semantic spheres also mark their presence in the discourse of the orators. Zemia, for instance, is frequently seen, this is handout number 6, is frequently seen to signify damage, both in the sense of loss and in the sense of indemnity or compensation. Both dicen, lambanein, didonai, and timoria are used by the orators. This is, by the way, handout number 7 to 8, are used by the orators to express the ideas of compensation on the one hand, and revenge, including also violent, extra-legal revenge on the other. Thus, we are faced apparently with a conundrum where the crucial, at least to our understanding of law terms, distinctions between punishment on one hand and revenge and compensation on the other are, well, seen almost hopelessly blurred with these keywords. It has been suggested by Shai Tissinier, for example, this is handout number 9, that it is the syntax and pragmatics that hold the key to disentangling this semantic sort of maze. The argument runs that when the subject, or rather the agent of penalty, because we're not speaking always about, we're not dealing with a precise grammatical subject, so I prefer the term agent of penalty. And also, I should explain myself, I'm somewhat stretching the meaning of the term penalty to make it into an umbrella term covering all the other concepts. So when the agent of penalty is an individual, an idiotes, for instance, the prosecutor, it is more likely to be understood as either compensation or revenge. When the agent of penalty is the dikast, the court that is, the police, the laws, the people, we would be more entitled to understand this in such cases as punishment. Now, this intuitively obvious observation is based on one defining feature of punishment, that is authority. As observed by Hart, punishment must be imposed and administered by an authority constituted by a legal system. The dikastic court in Athens was such authority, of course. It represented the entire community, the entire citizen body, the true sovereign, or perhaps even the master of Athens. That's jokingly related to Aristophanes in the Knights. And to push this metaphor a bit further, we could point to an apt observation made by Courtois, who observes that the master does not take revenge on his servants, he punishes them. He punishes them because he has authority over them. No such authority, however, could be claimed by one idiotes, one individual, over another, as long as both were, of course, enfranchised male citizens. Thus, when a plaintiff in a private suit for damages seeks to dicen lambane, we would be justified in understanding this as seeking compensation. When a prosecutor in a private suit for homicide seeks timoria, is the agent. Oh, sorry, we had a technical problem. Thank you. Seeks timoria, we would also be justified in such case to understand this as revenge. The fact that both these cases are mediated through the law courts does not really change anything in the mutual egalitarian relationship between the two antagonists. A victim of an offense, an individual, might also have the possibility and the stamina to right a wrong he himself has suffered by means of a public prosecution, like the humiliating slap, hybris, suffered by Demosthenes at the hands of Medius. Such offenses were nominally considered to affect the entire community as a whole. We can see the relevant passage number 14 in the handout. And as such, since they were considered to affect nominally the entire community, they were open to volunteer prosecution by any Athenian, any enfranchised Athenian who wished to do so. However, as long as it was the victim himself of such offense who took the role of this volunteer prosecutor, and by the way, such was the usual practice, then the relationship between the two parties remained essentially the same, an egalitarian relationship of compensation, or more likely, revenge, as stated, by the way, quite explicitly by Demosthenes in handout number 15. But what if there was no individual victim and no individual offense? What if we were dealing with an offense directed against the entire community at large, like drawing in a lawful decree, proposing in an expedient law, treason, desertion, impiety? Of course, such cases such as these, were also brought to court by volunteer prosecutors, but this time the aggrieved party was really, and not just nominally, the state. The relationship between the two parties is, therefore, no longer egalitarian, but hierarchical. A relationship not of revenge and compensation, but of punishment. In passages number 16 to 17, Lycurgus, in his speech against Leocrides, fleshes out this theoretical model. It is, according to Lycurgus, the dicasts who punish, koladze, who have the authority to punish, kyrios ontas kolasai. And what is the role of the volunteer prosecutor? Well, according to Lycurgus, this is given in number 16, it is merely to bring the crime to the attention of the court, meniri. And all the while, perhaps, maintaining a disinterested attitude towards the offender himself, as might be gathered from passage number 19. What emerges from these passages is a familiar model of the division of labor, so to say, where the authority to punish belongs to the court, and the role of the prosecutor is to inform and to prove. And yet, the discursive practice of the Greek orators is quick to dismantle this theoretical model, as we frequently see the prosecutor in strictly public cases, in cases of wrongs affecting the entire community with apparently no individual victim, we see the prosecutor as the agent of penalty. In Lysias, or Pseudo-Lysias, this is handout number 20, we are told that Andocides is said to have thought it right to punish someone else, Deacon Labe, for impiety. The same Andocides, in his own defense speech, handout number 21, is seen to promise to prosecute and punish other people for tax-related felonies. Demosthenes reproaches Aeschines again and again, these are passages number 22 to 25, for failing, for not seeking to punish him, that is Demosthenes, for his own alleged offenses against the polis. In Demosthenes' speech against Androtion, this is handout number 26, Androtion is claimed to have been disenfranchised himself actually, and therefore unable to decanlambane either for the sake of himself in a private lawsuit or for the sake of the polis in a public one. Last but not least, on many occasions, we see the individual, the idiotes, the prosecutor, as an agent of penalties expressed metonymically by means of the concrete for the abstract, as Aeschines, who is said to have disenfranchised Timarchus or Medias. The relevant passages are in number 28 in the handouts. Now, why? Why would the prosecutor, in a strictly public case with apparently no individual victim, why would a prosecutor be representative or represent himself as an agent of penalty? First, this may be simply a linguistic and rhetorical phenomenon. Greek verbs have frequently a causative force, most readily rendered into the English idiom as to have something done. For instance, to have someone punished, or in French, faire punir. And though this particular force is usually associated with the middle voice, the active also offers the opportunity of such translation, as seen, for example, in the Budet translation of Demosthenes' False Embassy speech. Aeschines is quite literally said to have punished Timarchus, to have disenfranchised him, or to have ruined him, but perhaps in the sense to have him punished, to have him disenfranchised, or to have caused this ruin. Now, the reason for phrasing Timarchus' punishment in this particular way seems pretty obvious. I do not think that Demosthenes was interested in investing Aeschines with punitive authority, or with any authority whatsoever, for that matter. But elsewhere, he is seen to deplore the fate of Timarchus, of his former associate, unjustly, as Demosthenes claimed, punished. And thus, in making Aeschines into the agent of this penalty, Demosthenes manages to both have the cake and eat the cake. That is, to maintain a highly critical stance towards the punishment suffered by Timarchus as a judicial decision, but without having to criticize the dicasts for it, and thus without running the risk of alienating them. This was purely Aeschines' affair. Second, in stepping down as a volunteer prosecutor, the idiotes, the individual, might want to settle an unrelated personal quarrel. This is the phenomenon of vindictive prosecution, of which I have tried to give a more detailed account elsewhere. I should, however, say that such vindictive prosecutors are quite clear that they are avenging their own personal wrongs, or they're pursuing their own personal enmity, even when at the same time they claim to seek penalties for the sake of the polis. We may find some relevant passages in number 29 of the handout. Now, the third and most interesting answer is that the idiotes, in fact, was also a victim. Not the victim, like the vindictive prosecutor, of an earlier unrelated offense, but the victim of the very public offense that was under trial. This is stated most vividly in the Demosthenes speech for Phormio, where it is said that Apollodorus considered it fit to deacon labelli, to punish, be the agent of the penalty, for public wrongs in which he himself has been wronged only in part. I should add that these public offenses were most likely, they were mentioned just a moment earlier in this passage cited, were most likely charges of high treason, probably prosecuted by means of asangelia. And therefore we would be dealing with perhaps the most general offenses directed against the entire polis, affecting the entire community, and yet the prosecutor, as part of that community, could be considered as partly but directly harmed by this public offense. Even the Lycurgus, this is passage number 31, claims that a person guilty of a public offense should be considered a personal enemy by every upstanding citizen. And the logical conclusion of putting things this way is that even in the case of strictly public wrongs directed against the entire polis, the individual, the idiotes, can be discursively constructed as an agent of penalty, or perhaps more specifically, revenge. As such, the idiotes, the volunteer prosecutor, is also seen to punish, perhaps to take revenge, on the offender along with the dicasts. Some other passages may be found in number 32. This in turn may suggest that the dicasts themselves could be constructed as agents of revenge, demoted, so to say, from the hierarchical relationship with the offender to a more egalitarian one. Quite like the wronged individual, whether he would be acting legally or not, the dicasts are asked to, the dicasts are asked to act, to punish, perhaps to take revenge, in anger. This is the passage number 33 also in the handouts. Quite like the offended individual, including the vindictive prosecutor, the dicasts too are also asked to consider the offender their own personal enemy. They are admonished also to feel hatred towards him and to punish him thus. And quite like an individual, they can also be approached from the opposite angle, that of positive reciprocity, with yet another essentially egalitarian concept, that of charis, gratitude. Handout number 35, for some more details. What emerges from such rhetoric is a model alternative to that sketched out by the Cruz. The prosecutor, the idiotes, is here not merely the agency bringing the offense and the offender to the attention of the dicasts, but himself engaged, along with every other member of the community, represented, of course, by the dicasts, engaged in an act of communal and yet highly personal revenge. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your paper. And